Right now on Morning News Now, double threat. Millions on the West Coast are dealing with the threat of serious flooding from the remnants of Hilary. And at the same time, Southern California was also rocked by one of the most powerful earthquakes to hit the area in decades. The historic 1-2 punch dumping rain that's caused flash flooding and downing power lines. And there could be even more trouble ahead. We're on the ground with the latest on the ongoing threat, the impact, and where the storm is heading now. Also this morning, a presidential visit. President Biden is set to tour the devastated island of Maui as families begin to pick up the pieces. But his arrival isn't without controversy as anger over the state and federal response continues to grow. What we're hearing from locals and the new warning this morning as hundreds are listed as officially missing. Plus, split-screen programming as GOP presidential hopefuls prepare to take the stage for the first time. Former President Donald Trump prepares to surrender for the fourth indictment filed against him. But the ongoing legal drama surrounding the former president seems to have done little to stifle his support. We're breaking down a new NBC News Des Moines Register poll this morning. And Viva La Roja. It was a fiesta in Sydney as Spain knocked off England to win its first ever Women's World Cup. From the celebration to the controversies surrounding the Spanish coach, we've got everything you need to know.
1-0, a nice little game.
Yeah,
One goal
there you
scored,
go.
and that meant
Yeah.
everything. Good morning. Good to have you with us on this Monday. I'm Joe Fryer.
Yeah, thanks for starting your week with us. I'm Savannah Sellers. We begin this morning with the historic storm lashing the West Coast with heavy rains and strong winds.
Hilary is the first tropical storm to directly impact Southern California in 84 years. The last time the region was threatened by a storm like this was back in the 1970s. But in that case, the storm did not make landfall. This one did. Hilary was once a Category 4 hurricane. Then it weakened to a tropical storm before making landfall Sunday on the Baja California peninsula of Mexico. From there, the storm slowly made its way north, crossing into the U.S. near San Diego. Hilary has brought flooding and mudslides to the region, prompting Governor Gavin Newsom to declare a state of emergency. And if that weren't enough, a magnitude 5.1 earthquake also hit parts of Southern California. This video shows the quake as it happened inside a restaurant. There were no reports of significant damage, but the region has felt at least a dozen aftershocks. Governor Newsom says state officials will be on the ground checking for damage caused by both the storm and the earthquake.
The original assessment is not major damage, but I don't believe that at the moment until I see it. And then we'll continue to be around all week to make sure the recovery is going along well.
We have full coverage of Hilary's impact in both California and Nevada this morning. Let's begin with NBC News correspondent Guad Venegas, who joins us from San Diego with the latest. So, Guad, set the scene for us. The storm moved through that area yesterday. What's the latest on the ground where you are?
Joe, it did come through this part of Southern California. Now, we know that it made landfall in Mexico, south of the border, and it moved east. It moved inland. So the center and the worst part of the storm came through this part of Southern California on the east part of San Diego. This is a mountain area closer to the desert. So authorities had time to prepare. They wanted residents to be ready, especially those in parts of Southern California that live in areas where they know they have flooding. So the possibility of flash floods was really the main warning for customers. Authorities asked people to stay off the roads in this part of San Diego. They did. So we had hours of rain, which of course caused that flooding, and heavy winds in all of the San Diego area. So this morning we're seeing a lot of branches across the roadways. We've seen some downed trees in the San Diego area. There were some power outages reported throughout the day. Yesterday, a couple thousand customers were affected. But for the most part, the infrastructure held here in the San Diego area, with the worst of the storm again coming through that mountain area and then moving its way north into the Riverside and San Bernardino counties, which are east of Los Angeles. Let's hear from the authorities in L.A. speaking about the storm.
LA County Public Health has issued a warning. People should stay out of the water in our beaches for 72 hours.
I'm worried about some of the more rural and remote areas in the eastern part of the state, some of the more mountainous regions where people could be trapped or there could be debris concerns. So that's where we're focusing a little bit more of our extra energy.
Governor Newsom talks about the eastern parts of the states. These are the mountains that directly connect to the desert areas, more remote communities. They got a lot of heavy rain and heavy wind, and this is also the area where more flooding was expected. So overnight, authorities were paying close attention to that. So this morning, we'll be able to assess some of the damage that could have been caused by that storm.
So, Guad, let's be clear. Southern California does not normally see storms like this. Even a little rain can cause some chaos. So tell us more about the infrastructure in the region and just their ability to handle this kind of extreme weather.
So, as you mentioned, California does not see storms like this one. Now, California did get a lot of rain earlier this year, so they were able to experience some of that flooding. They knew what to expect. So going into this, state, local, county, and city officials from San Diego to the LA area were prepared for this. They asked customers to get sand and use sandbags to protect their property. They wanted people to keep in mind that flooding could be happening in their areas. They declared a local emergency here in San Diego County and LA County. So the resources were there. And California does deal with natural disasters like wildfires, which are, of course, completely different, but they do have the infrastructure with first responders standing by. I'll give you an example. The main freeway that connects the San Diego area to the deserts that goes east to west had a boulder slide off the mountain. Now, that part of the freeway was quickly shut down. Authorities were communicating well with drivers, telling them to stay off the road. So there's an infrastructure in California to respond to emergencies. And also, as I mentioned, residents had enough time to prepare, especially those that lived in areas that flooded. California is not flat like some parts of Florida where they get a lot of tropical storms. We have a lot of mountains and hills, so people know what the geography is like where they live, and they knew what to expect, Joe.
So many different types of hazards, Guad. So today, clearly, weather conditions are better there. What can we expect in terms of surveying the damage and starting the cleanup?
Well, we're starting to get some of those rainfall totals for different parts of Southern California this morning, inches of rain all across the region. We still have some wind, so the wind, of course, is not what we had overnight. The rain has stopped here in San Diego, so it's expected to clear later in the day. So it'll be an effort to assess the damage. I can tell you here in the San Diego area, there's reports of falling large trees, some even on structures. The streets are full of debris, mainly from palm trees and from other items that just fell into the road. So it'll be a day to see what kind of damage was caused by the storm all across the area here. And of course, moving north into other desert areas north of San Diego, Palm Springs, and going into the high deserts towards Nevada, where the storm made its way through.
And we'll take a closer look at those areas coming up now. Guad, thank you so much.
Yeah, that was a great setup, because now we're going to bring in the mayor of Palm Springs, California, Mayor Grace Garner. Thank you very much for joining us this morning, Mayor. First, just tell us, how are conditions there right now?
Well, conditions I'm unclear on what the conditions are completely, because I was also sheltering in place in my drive to City Hall this morning. You could see that there was debris on the road. Thankfully, some of the areas that were flooded are not as flooded in the moment, just on our main city streets. However, our 911 is down at the moment. We are asking residents to text 911 or to call the non-emergency lines. This is something that's happening not just in Palm Springs, but throughout the Coachella Valley. So anyone that needs 911 services should contact their non-emergency number in their city. And this is at 4 a.m. Pacific time. So please continue to check the city websites to make sure that you have the most up-to-date information.
And Mayor, when do you expect those 911 lines to be restored? And how much of a concern is it that they are down and that people might not know about those other options?
It's a huge concern. This happened late last night. We have immediately increased our patrols. Fire and police were out patrolling the streets, and our police chief and our fire chief and our city manager are all working on getting this back up as quickly as possible. We've also sent this information out all over our social media. That's part of why I want to make sure that everyone hears it here on the news as well. But again, we're going to work as hard as we can to get those back up. We are in touch with the county, with the state on this issue.
Do you have everything you need at this point from Governor Newsom to handle the storm? Have the resources been enough?
Right now, we have the resources that we need, but we haven't been able to assess the damage. Once the sun comes up and we're able to take drives around and really see what we're looking at, then we'll be able to communicate with the county and the state to let them know what else we need. But at this time, we feel very prepared for next steps. We just don't know completely what that will be.
Your guidance, I know, for residents of the area as of yesterday anyway, was to stay home. Please do not be on the roads. Please do not drive if possible. Is that still the advice? What do you want people at home to know? Should they continue to hunker down?
Yes, absolutely. Please stay home. Yes, there's going to be sun today, and that's fantastic. However, we have a lot of cleanup to do. We need to assess the damage, and if the roads are clear, that makes our job that much easier, and we're able to get those roads open much faster if people just stay in place. Schools are closed, many businesses are closed, and that's really the way it should be for today.
All right, Mayor Grace Garner, thank you for your time while you're dealing with us, and thank you for joining us so early. We appreciate it.
Parts of Nevada are now feeling the impact of Hilary. Our coverage continues with NBC News correspondent Jake Ward, who's in Las Vegas. So, Jake, I understand the governor of Nevada has also declared a state of emergency. It appears Vegas is escaping the worst of this storm. It's to the west of you, but what are you seeing on the ground there? What are the conditions like in other parts of the state?
Well, at this hour, Joe, it does seem that the worst has gone past Las Vegas after the storm moved beyond where Guad is in San Diego and then past Palm Springs. It has now moved up into a very rural, remote part of Nevada north of where I am right now. At this hour, there is still a declaration of emergency across the state and here in Las Vegas. But at this point, we're getting the sense that there's very little actual concern at this hour. Just to the east of where I'm standing, Lake Mead had an evacuation and shelter center set up with cots and bedding for anybody, and they just closed it last night, reporting that no one had shown up. So at this point, it seems that the worst has gone past Las Vegas, and this city of 650,000 people seems to be safe, Joe.
Yeah, still, Vegas was bracing for perhaps a worst-case scenario. I understand the city has a rather unique infrastructure in place for something like this. Tell us about that.
It's very interesting, Joe. This place, the Las Vegas Valley, is essentially one big bowl. And over time, the geology, I had a lot of time to spend on this yesterday, the geology of it basically turns it into porcelain, such that water just shoots down from the mountains and into Las Vegas itself. I don't think the people who founded this city realized that at the time. But over the years, it's been a terrible problem. In 1999 and again in 2012, you had big flooding such that whitewater rapids moved down the strip. Since that time, city officials and the Clark County have put in a $1.9 billion piece of infrastructure. You're looking at some of it there that washes the mountain water down through the city and into a system of storm tunnels that are then designed there to move it many, many blocks under the city itself and then get rid of it. So at this point, having spent yesterday driving around and looking at this kind of infrastructure, it's truly made a fortress out of Sin City in the face of this kind of potential flooding.
Jake became a temporary geology expert over the weekend. So, let's be clear, Jake. This is Las Vegas. People go there to have fun, to party. Despite all of this, what's the mood like there?
This is the strangest part about reporting on anything from Las Vegas. You emerge from your hotel room at 1:30 in the morning and the people are doing exactly what they are always doing on the casino floor. We had the experience yesterday of, as we shot those images that you saw there of that wash coming through what's called the Link. It's one of the hotels here. We were told to move off of that property as quickly as we could. Hotel executives basically said they didn't like the impression that it gave. So there's very much the sense that you want business as usual when you run a casino here in Las Vegas. And wherever we went, it was tourists aplenty. Marijuana is now legal here in Nevada. So you had people literally with joints dangling from their lips, watching the waters go past. The sense was not one of strict emergency here. But that is, of course, the good news. We don't want people caught for something they are not prepared for. It seems very much that the invisible infrastructure under Sin City kept all the sin afloat as this storm moved past, Joe.
It's quite the image. I have in my mind now. All right,
Yeah, wow.
Jake Ward in Las Vegas. Jake, thank you so much.
Well, we are now joined by John Steinbeck, the Clark County, Nevada Fire Chief. Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us, Chief. So the Las Vegas Strip falls under the jurisdiction of Clark County. So we just heard there from Jake, it sounds like things a little bit better than expected, people not going to shelters and things like that. But tell us from your perspective where things stand on the Strip right now and what people should know, especially in light of what Jake just said of kind of, continuing business as usual on a trip to Las Vegas. What should people visiting or planning to visit today, tomorrow, know about what's happening in the city?
Yes, thank you for having me today, and we are very glad to report that the storm the bulk of the storm certainly did pass us by, and we seem to avoid most of the damage. We don't see any interruption in our opportunities for visitors, and very little disruption actually today in the lives of our residents. We did prepare diligently. Lots of extra resources up and monitoring. We do have some issues in the outlying areas that we're addressing, but within the Las Vegas Valley, where we have 2.3 million residents and hundreds of thousands of visitors every day, everything looks great.
I'm not sure if you can see the video that we're playing right now, but it's what our friend Jake was referencing in terms of this system that kind of shuffles all this water down into these storm tunnels. It looks pretty dramatic, I'd say, to somebody who's just watching thinking, wow, that's in the middle of Las Vegas. But like you just said, you had time to prepare. It looks like these systems worked in the way that they were supposed to. Is that correct? And tell me a little bit more about that preparation.
It is correct, and most of the preparation that you see there is years in the making, regional flood efforts that we put together to keep the city safe from flooding that certainly occurred much more prevalent in the 90s, and that I certainly responded on. But it can still be overwhelmed if the rains hit a certain area like we were expecting. Mm-hmm. We expected some of these to be overwhelmed, and we were in position with extra resources and certainly with our emergency messaging. However, that didn't come to fruition. We didn't have those type of rains, and we're not out of the flash flood warnings yet. That doesn't end until 7 a.m. But right here in the area that you're looking at now, we don't expect that to get any worse than what you're seeing, and it's working as designed. It's
pretty amazing to see the way it's designed, again, in the middle of the city. How unusual is this weather for you all for this time of year? And between, the remnants of a tropical storm like this and then the extreme heat that you dealt with this summer, are you concerned moving forward about the different types of responses you're going to have to these extreme weather events?
Concerned, we're prepared, and we're continuing to prepare. We have a monsoon season every August. The heavy rains come in. That's why we have that infrastructure that's in place. We do have areas that will flood, but it's manageable, at least at that level. We thought that this time it was going to maybe come over the top and be a little bit more than what we've seen in the past. But we're prepared as long as we continue to prepare properly. Honestly, over the last 48 hours, we've done so much coordination and messaging that we had less emergency response than we would on a normal Sunday night. So wow. It all worked, and we're grateful for it.
That is very interesting to hear. Great to hear. Clark County, Nevada Fire Chief John Steinbeck, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Absolutely, and we do see what's happening in California, and we're watching that closely, and I do have a team in Maui, and our hearts certainly go out to them.
Absolutely. Thank you for telling us that. We'll check in with you. Thank you very much.
So what is next? Let's get the latest on Hilary's track.
Meteorologist Bill Cairns joins us in studio. Hey, Bill, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. So everyone can kind of tell the theme right now. We're following what happened going till dark. So we have those pictures to show you of definitely some mudslides, debris flows. We know we've had dozens, if not hundreds. And then once the sun comes back up, we'll see just where the worst of it was. And it would likely, by looking at the rainfall totals, the mountainous areas just to the north of Los Angeles really picked up on a lot of rain. I mean, look at almost 9 inches of rain. So this, if we have any really bad debris and mudslides and flows or on the burn scar areas, it's going to be in these areas, and also towards the mountains just east, heading down towards San Diego, all the mountains to the east of those areas. That's the highest rainfall total, by the way, almost a foot of rain at Mount San Jacinto. So again, We haven't heard of any communities that have been devastated. We haven't even heard of any neighborhoods that have completely slid off hillsides because of this storm. So every hour that goes by without those reports is great news. But we do have communities that are cut off because of these mud and debris flows in the mountainous areas. There's only like 1 or 2 roads into some of these communities, and those are cut off and the roads are blocked. So that'll be one of the themes today, is getting into these and trying to clear roads out all day long and likely all week long. We still have flash flood warnings for everywhere in maroons. That's still a huge section of the mountainous areas from Bishop to Mammoth, the Yosemite southwards, just outside of Las Vegas, and into areas north of San Diego. And Los Angeles, by the way, that flash flood warning has just expired for you. So the center of the storm, it's no longer tropical. And by the way, that was the 4th time last night a tropical storm in our recorded history has ever been located over the state of California. So again, an extremely rare event. And now all that rain is just heading northwards into areas of Oregon and also into Idaho. As far as the additional problems, we're done really in Southern California. We may get a few showers and thunderstorms in Nevada today, but we'll watch our friends here in areas of eastern Oregon around Baker City. That's who could pick up 2 to 3 inches during the day today. Again, slight risk of flash flooding all through this region with isolated downpours. Again, the ground's already soggy. And as far as the winds went, this one actually, I went into the storm telling everyone about 5% of the damage would be from wind, 95% from water. And we did have some high wind gusts, 84 miles per hour, 79. And these were all in the mountainous areas. But we only have 50,000 people without power right now. That's fantastic. It could have been so much worse. And other concerns out there, as we look at these active problems in the Atlantic, this weekend we had 3 storms that formed: Franklin, Gert, and Emily. Now, Gert and Emily, we're not going to worry about at all. There's also that little red X in the Gulf of Mexico, and we don't like storms forming that close to us anytime. That is going to likely become a tropical storm in the next 2 days, and we'll spend probably much of Wednesday covering a tropical storm heading into South Texas. It does appear that it'll mostly be the Corpus Christi area down towards Brownsville. And then for our friends in Puerto Rico, we're going to have to watch Franklin. This storm's going to take a little hook and head up towards the Dominican Republic. They're going to have concerns for flash flooding there. Shouldn't be a powerful hurricane, but a lot of heavy rain in mountainous areas is always bad, as we just saw in Southern California. But Puerto Rico is also going to get a lot of downpours from that storm also.
It's that time of year.
Yeah. It is. The peak of the hurricane season is the first weekend in September, so we're not there yet.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Thank you very much, Bill. Well, while the Southwest is dealing with the impact of Hilary, parts of the Pacific Northwest are being threatened by wildfires. There are 3 wildfires that are burning outside of Spokane, Washington. Some 25,000 acres have been burned, and thousands of people have been forced to evacuate. So far, there have been at least 2 confirmed deaths. 35-mile-per-hour winds have made it difficult for firefighters to try to contain the flames. But there is a chance for showers in the area today and tomorrow, and the winds are expected to die down.
Coming up, a growing movement to ban cell phones in schools. It's not just some students are against the change. We'll tell you why some parents say it could be dangerous.
But first, more than a week after deadly wildfires ripped through Hawaii, President Biden is set to visit the devastated island. We are live from Maui coming up.
We're back with the latest on the devastation in Hawaii. Maui residents continue to pick up the pieces after the deadliest wildfire in modern U.S. history.
Later today, President Biden will visit Maui, a trip that's facing criticism from some people on the island. NBC News correspondent Steve Patterson joins us now from Maui with the latest. Hey, Steve, good morning. Thanks for being here. So let's start off with the latest on the search for victims. Maui's county mayor says 850 people have been officially counted as missing, and there's the possibility also of rain coming. That could actually ultimately hurt recovery efforts, so search efforts. What can you tell us about the latest on this?
Yeah, 850 missing comes directly from the mayor. He put out an address overnight on social media talking about the effort to sort of combine lists. So this is the first time that we've actually gotten an official number from a government body. This is a combination of lists that were collected by the county, by the city, by certain other groups like the Red Cross, and finally putting it into a full list. Yeah, so 85% of that total search area has now been completed. It is a very slow, very grueling process, as we've been been laying out, because those cadaver dogs have to search for remains that are very, very badly burned. And this is why we're talking about the rain. If rain is moving into the forecast, it could easily hamper those efforts, hamper the dog's ability to sort of find those remains and identify those remains, but also it poses the danger of releasing toxins into bodies of water as that runoff would go off too. So multiple fronts, this is not good for the search and recovery effort. However, they're working as fast as they can. They're covering a great distance, and certainly we hear about improvements every single day.
So, Steve, President Biden is visiting the island today to tour the damage firsthand. First, what's on his schedule, but also, you know, we've talked plenty about concerns over the local response, but how are people there feeling about the federal response?
You know, I mean, nobody here is happy with the response, be that county, be that state, and be that federal. Obviously, the president will be here, and I think a lot of people are seeing that as a sign of respect, seeing that as a sign that the federal government is paying attention to the situation on the ground. And certainly when he meets with leadership and he tours the devastation, we don't know the exact details, but he will be here to do that. He will be met with government officials that are happy to see him, but I also expect him to be met with people who are not so happy. I think protests are likely to happen while he's here. There was a very big delay from what a lot of people would say, from his initial discovery and response to what happened to the wildfire about 2 days after that fire tore through this town, and then another week until he really made an official response to sort of talk about some of the things that the federal government is doing. So because of that gap, I think a lot of people, you know, aren't necessarily so happy with the president, but we will see when he arrives in just a few hours, guys.
Yeah, we know that you'll keep us updated both on what he does as well as those potential protests, and we'll keep covering that throughout the day. Steve, though, it does just seem we just keep on hearing these heartbreaking specific stories that are coming out of the recovery process. I know you came across a story about a boy and his dog. Tell us about that.
14-year-old Quiero Fuentes, and this fire is heartbreaking in so many ways, countless ways, but one of them is that the fire struck really as children were just getting out of school. So in a lot of cases, and we don't know how many children, of course, are among the wreckage, but it's expected to be a significant number, and he's one of them. His own family also found him huddled with his dog in his own room. I want you to hear from his brother, who talks about exactly what they came upon. Listen to this.
You know, he probably tried to save him, and, you know, he jumped on top of him and he hugged him.
Him in reference to his dog, Dexter. There's so many sad stories, and like you said, it's almost every single day that we encounter another one with this amount of people now notified as dead, but also the amount of missing, which is just tremendous here, guys.
Oh, it really is. All right, Steve Patterson, thanks so much for your reporting.
To international news now, and reports from state media say that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un oversaw a new cruise missile test.
NBC News correspondent Claudio Lavanga joins us live from Rome with that and other world headlines. Hey, Claudio, good morning.
Hey, Savannah and Joe, good morning. That's right. Photos from those reports show Kim Jong-un observing the test firing of the, quote, strategic cruise missile. Now, you can see that a cruise missile soaring from a patrol ship. This report comes just as the U.S. and South Korean militaries kicked off the major annual drills. Pyongyang views these efforts as a rehearsal for invasion, and the controversial test also comes just 3 days after the first standalone trilateral summit between the U.S., South Korea, and Japan. Now let's go literally to the moon. India's space agency just released some images as their spacecraft approaches the lunar South Pole. They're expected to land sometimes this week. For a while, it was a space race between Russia and India, both countries pushing to reach this lunar region for the first time. Images from India's space agency comes just a day after Russia's spacecraft crashed during its first moon mission in nearly 50 years. If India is successful, they will be the first country to land on the unexplored South Pole. We end our news tour of the world in Istanbul, where swimmers are celebrating after taking the water for the 35th edition of the Bosphorus Cross-Continental Swim Race. It's an annual event organized by the Turkish National Olympic Committee. And the competition is fierce. About 2,600 athletes from over 70 nations dove in for the challenging open water swim, stroking through the 4 miles of the Bosphorus Strait, one of the busiest waterways in the world. The winner in the men's category finished in just over 41 minutes, and the women's winner wrapped up the race in only a minute longer. 42 minutes. Congratulations to both.
I would still be
Back
swimming.
to you guys.
Yeah, for real.
Dog paddling. All right, Claudia, thank you so much.
Thank you. Coming up, as Republican hopefuls prepare to take center stage for the first time, we're getting new insight into the race for the White House.
We'll have the latest on a new NBC News poll this morning, plus what former President Trump is planning after announcing he's going to skip that first primary debate.
Welcome back. We are staying on top of major news out west, where an unprecedented 1-2 punch from Mother Nature has parts of the West Coast reeling. People in Ventura and Los Angeles counties are being asked to stay at home after record-breaking rains from Hilary flooded roads. The storm also forced school closures in both California and Nevada as it moves north this morning. Well, in the middle of it all, a 5.1 magnitude earthquake rocked parts of the Southern California coast. You can see that here in this video. People inside this restaurant scramble to get outside. The U.S. Geological Survey reported there were at least a dozen aftershocks of magnitude 3 or greater in the area, but seismologists say the two events are not connected. We'll stay on top of both of these stories and have the very latest in our next hour.
Staying in California, where an investigation is underway, a business owner was fatally shot after someone allegedly took issue with an LGBTQ+ flag displayed at her store. San Bernardino police say the suspect made several comments about the flag before shooting Laura Ann Carlton. The suspect was also fatally shot by officers after confronting them with a weapon. Carlton was a mother of 9 and known in the community as an LGBTQ+ advocate. She did not identify as a member of the LGBTQ community.
Heartbreaking. Well, a new poll released this morning conducted by NBC News and the Des Moines Register shows former President Donald Trump continues to be the clear frontrunner for the Republican presidential nomination.
But some other candidates are also starting to make some gains 2 days out from the first Republican presidential debate. For more, let's bring in NBC News correspondent Vaughn Hilliard. He is in Des Moines, words we will utter many times over the next few months. Vaughn, good morning. So, as we said, the poll, it clearly shows former President Trump is still the current frontrunner for the Republican Party nomination. No surprise there. But the poll also shows a lot of people still haven't made up their minds. So what are we seeing?
Yeah, good morning, my friends. Look here, Donald Trump is still in a sturdy position. He's got a 23-point lead in our polling here, less than 5 months out to the Iowa caucus over Ron DeSantis. But the polling also shows that there are a number of candidates still being actively considered by Republican caucus goers here in Iowa. That includes South Carolina Senator Tim Scott, former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, Vivek Ramaswamy. Mike Pence is still even under consideration. And so when you're looking at these numbers, there is the open opportunity for an alternative to Donald Trump. But right now, the difficulty is that about 2/3 of folks who say they intend to caucus for Donald Trump say they will definitely caucus for him. And, you know, from some conversations we had with voters here, the question is who would be the most viable alternative to take him on and ultimately close that gap? That's the outstanding question here as we head to the fall.
Yeah, Vaughn, tell us more about these voters that you spoke with, specifically Republicans. How do they feel about the former president being back in the race and holding that lead?
Right. We actually talked to a few of the actual participants in the polls, the folks that actually picked up the phone and gave their responses. We sat down with them last night and had a little bit of conversation about Donald Trump and whether there is any chance that he does not win the Iowa caucus. Take a listen.
Personally, I think that a lot of people that are in my shoes that want someone other than Donald Trump aren't as vocal.
I think he has an excellent chance of winning in the general election. I think there will be a lot of support.
And that's a conversation we expect to take place over the months ahead. Who thinks that who thinks a particular Republican could be in the best position to beat Joe Biden. Jody, the first woman you heard from, said that she would not vote for Donald Trump in a general election, but would vote for any one of the other Republicans here on the caucus ballot. And so that is sort of this debate that is taking place in real time.
Okay, so that last gentleman there said he thinks Trump can win the general election. I guess that's my next question. If Trump is the Republican nominee in 2024, how do Republicans rate his chances of beating the incumbent, President Joe Biden?
Right. And folks in this poll were asked whether they would pick a candidate most likely aligned with their issues or most have the best chance to beat Joe Biden. And it was by a 2-to-1 margin, essentially, folks saying issues versus most likely to beat Joe Biden. And so there's this dynamic that is really for these Republican candidates that they're having to grapple with. I want to let you listen to a little bit more of our conversation with two of the other voters we talked to.
I don't think he's going to lose the second time. I think it's worth the risk.
I think that if Donald Trump is the candidate, then I think we're looking at 4 more years of Democratic president.
4 more years of a Democratic president, you know, and I was talking to Bob, one of the gentlemen you heard from, though, who is the ardent Trump supporter. He said, look, there's a bunch of Trump supporters out there that otherwise likely wouldn't go vote if Donald Trump is not the nominee. And so this is sort of the American politics today. It's really tough. The best we can do is look at polling and have conversations with the voters like you just heard from.
All right, Vaughn, thank you so much.
Always a great conversation with Vaughn. Well, as the GOP gears up for its first debate on Wednesday, one candidate will be missing from the stage. Former President Trump confirmed Sunday that he will skip the first Republican presidential primary debate and indicated he also may not attend future ones. The former president wrote on his Truth social media platform that polling shows him leading in the Republican primary field by such a wide margin that he doesn't need to stand alongside his rivals. A source familiar with Trump's thinking said the decision applies to only the first 2 debates, which are affiliated with Fox News and Fox Business.
One candidate who will be at the debate Wednesday is North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum. He is a software entrepreneur now in his second term as governor. On Sunday's Meet the Press, he laid out the basics for his platform. Here's moderator Chuck Todd with more on their conversation.
Well, hello there, Joe and Savannah. This week on Meet the Press, Republican presidential candidate Governor Doug Burgum joined me ahead of the first primary debate to discuss former President Trump's growing legal troubles. Take a look at what he had to say.
It's got the character and the integrity, the proven track record of being able to do that. And that's what I've done my whole life in every organization I've been, but people don't know that yet. So we absolutely are going to leave that to this whole industry. We've got to focus on telling our story and telling the story of what we've been able to get done in North Dakota.
You know, you are running for president. You don't think people need to know where you stand on these issues? You're asking to be the next guardrail of the American democracy. At the end of the day, this is the biggest stress test our country's faced in over 100 years.
Yes, and I think part of a stress test, whether it's for Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, Donald Trump, everybody's innocent until they're proven guilty in this country, and lots of accusations that are being tossed around. But I think that if, you know, we're focused on January is when the first caucuses and primary are. That's when the voters get to decide. I do trust the voters. I trust that if we can show that we're a credible alternative, that we can deliver the things that Americans are looking for, because Americans do want this country to move forward. They want presidential elections to be about the future, a vision for the future. Then we have to offer that. If I'm just one more pundit, you know, criticizing everything that's gone on in 2020, no one's gonna see that there's leadership there.
You can see my full interview and more at MeetThePress.com. You can also get more Meet the Press right here on NBC News Now every single weekday at 4 p.m.
All right, Chuck, thank you so much.
Well, coming up, for the first time in 4 decades, Maryland has reported a locally acquired case of malaria.
What scientists are saying about this infection and the unusual trend they're seeing in cases. That's next. We're back with a concerning update on malaria in the U.S. Maryland is now reporting its first case of locally acquired malaria, something that hasn't happened in that state in 40 years. Experts say it's the latest in a string of cases popping up across the country. NBC News correspondent George Solis has the details.
A new warning after a case of malaria was found in Maryland, hundreds of miles north of where recent cases have been. Health officials on edge because this was locally contracted. That means the patient didn't get it overseas or any place further south that has already seen infections.
It's certainly unusual. We want to let people know just so they can be on the lookout.
That patient now recovering after being hospitalized. So far, officials at a loss as to how they got infected. If it is in Maryland, could it be anywhere?
Well, I suppose it could. Conceivably, it could. It's probably going to be a pretty rare event, though. Trying to understand where this locally acquired case came from is going to be very difficult to understand.
It's the first this far north, with cases found in the warmer southern states of Florida and Texas.
We have the eggs, we have the larvae.
NBC News' Blaine Alexander got an exclusive look inside a CDC mosquito lab where a malaria response team is on high alert, with mosquitoes that carry malaria being found here at home for the first time in 20 years.
Why are we seeing these cases now? It's a good question, and we don't have a good answer for absolutely why didn't we see it in 20 years and it came up now.
Malaria can appear a week to a month after infection and can cause fever, chill, and body aches. Experts say a national outbreak is unlikely, but they are tracking it closely. George Solis, NBC News.
All right, let's get you some financial news now. New reports say Meta's Threads could launch a desktop version this week.
CNBC's Silvana Henao is live with that and other money news. Silvana, good morning.
Hey, Joe. Hey, Savannah. Good morning to you. Yeah, so Meta's Threads is reportedly expected to launch a desktop version this week. This has been a top request by users, along with a chronological timeline, which was recently added. Experts say while links from Threads can be viewed on the web, a desktop version could help promote the app to a wider audience across the internet. Threads was launched in early July, but has seen user growth and engagement drop off. Packed airports this summer could be a sign of what's ahead. A report from the World Travel and Tourism Council is projecting travel to become a more than $15 trillion industry in the next decade. That accounts for more than 11% of the global economy. The most powerful travel and tourism economies based on GDP are the same as before the pandemic. The U.S., China, Germany, UK, and Japan. The industry is forecast to employ up to 430 million people by 2033, or roughly 1 of every 9 jobs worldwide. And your dream car may be way out of your price range. Rolls-Royce has unveiled the Droptail. It's the latest model in its exclusive coach-built series. The Roadster is inspired by high-speed sailing yachts from the 1930s. It seats 2 and comes with a removable carbon fiber hardtop. The price hasn't been announced, but it's estimated to cost more than $30 million. Rolls-Royce is only making 4, and buyers will be able to design the vehicle with specialized function to their liking. How about that?
What if they do financing for that, like a 500-year car loan or something?
Yeah, right? Like, how many lifetimes do you have to, live for?
$30 million for a car. Wow. Savannah, thank you.
You got it.
The students head back to the classroom. Some schools are laying down new rules about phones.
Yeah, students at an Alabama school have to lock their phones away for the entire day. And that policy is being met with some mixed reviews. NBC News correspondent Marissa Parra has the story.
At Montgomery, Alabama's Carver High, the morning rush to school is now a morning rush to scroll.
Power your phone on!
New this year, middle and high school students now forced to lock away their phones before the bell rings.
When do they get it back?
2:45.
2:45.
Right.
Principal Gary Hall pushed for the policy and the pouch to enforce it.
They were texting, tweeting, you name it, while classes were going on.
Put it in the pouch, then.
Here's how it works. At the beginning of the day, students put their cell phones in these pouches.
Once it's locked, it is really hard to get back open.
They can keep it with them, they just can't open them. They're sealed.
There you go. Have a good day.
This unlocking magnet, the only thing designed to free them. It's not completely foolproof.
We found a lot of cell phone cases with no phone.
For students,
show of hands, who doesn't like the pouch?
It's a painful adjustment.
I just love watching TikTok, so I gotta have my phone.
Why don't you like the pouch?
I don't like the pouches because when I'm in math class, I like to take pictures of the notes and stuff.
What's your favorite part?
We communicate more with each other now that our phone is locked up.
It make me pay attention when I don't got my phone.
Who would be using their cell phone if it weren't for the pouch? That's a lot of hands. What would you be doing?
Cheating.
Montgomery Public Schools isn't alone. The maker of the pouch, Yonder, says they're seeing an estimated 150% increase in schools using them in 2023. Now working with over 2,000 schools across the country. While most parents are for the pouch, others fear their children will not have their phone when they need it most.
If there's an emergency, how can I contact my child?
I mean, I'm in panic waiting until someone from the school calls and say, well, hey, there's a shooting.
It's been 1 week. Has it gone the way you thought it would?
I think it's going really well.
District Superintendent Dr. Melvin Brown tells us the benefits are worth the risk.
We have to find a happy medium, while at the same time, our ultimate goal is to make sure everybody's 100% as safe as possible.
All right, so moving on.
Just 1 week in, this school is already seeing a difference.
I just see engagement, honestly. I see talking. They're using their words.
It's revolutionized teaching for me this year.
Work gets done faster. We move along faster.
A new routine.
These are locking. Keep moving.
Educators hope will unlock their full potential. Marissa Parra, NBC News, Montgomery, Alabama.
Well, as college students return to campuses, there's a shift in who's in the classroom. New statistics show lecture halls on college campuses will be filled with more women than men, and that could actually end up impacting politics on a national level. According to the 2021 census, 56% of students enrolled in college identify as a woman, compared to 44% of students identifying as a man. That number has been steadily climbing since 1970. Experts say they expect the gap also to grow in the coming years. So what does that mean outside the classroom? While more women are expected to hold higher level positions that require applicants to have degrees, it could also make a difference in the polls. Democrats won women voters by double digits in the 2020 election. Voters with bachelor's degrees also voted for Democrats by 12 points.
Coming up, a historic win in the Women's World Cup.
Up next, we'll take you through all the nail-biting action and the controversy surrounding the coach of the new world champs. Stick with us.
Welcome back. It looks like the Barbie box office reign has come to an end. The new DC superhero movie, Blue Beetle, landed in the top spot, taking in just over $25 million in sales. Now, that's not a huge opening for a DC superhero movie, but keep in mind the cast couldn't promote it because of the Hollywood strikes. Variety reports that Barbie is set to overtake Universal's Super Mario Bros. Movie as the biggest domestic release of the year. No surprise there. It seemed to be on that path.
Now it's about time for you to go see it.
Yes, I will.
I can't wait to talk to you about it.
Next month, soon. Yeah. History was made at the Women's World Cup this weekend.
Spain beat England 1-0 in the final, securing their first ever trophy for the women's team. Let's bring in Alicia Delgado for more on this. She's the senior editor for USA Today Sports. Alicia, good to have you with us again. So walk us through this final match. How was Spain able to defeat England?
Yeah, this match was incredible. Oh my goodness. For those of you who woke up early, you got to see a really great match. Spain completely overpowered England most of the game and exploited their left side and was dynamic, fast, had tons of chances. And then Olga Carmona scored the game winner early in the game in the 29th minute, and England couldn't capitalize on their many chances either.
Let's talk about Spain's head coach. 15 of his players have raised concerns about his management style last October. The controversy, of course, cast a shadow over the team ever since the World Cup began. So they've won the World Cup now. Where do things stand with that after winning the tournament?
Yeah, so only 3 of those 15 players actually were called into the team, and they ended up, the Federation backed Vilda at the time, and shortly after the World Cup, the Federation backed him again. When they tweeted out what was seen by many as an insensitive post saying that Vilda is in and, indicating that there is no change coming in terms of the coaching. And so the players still have a fight on their hands. They were fighting for opportunities. They were fighting against the environment that he created, and they were fighting for better conditions for themselves as well.
Let's talk about England now. I mean, a lot of people had them as favorites for this game. They're the reigning European champs, but they couldn't get this win. Where does this result leave that team?
I think this result's going to leave them just itching to get right back here 4 years from now, going into all the tournaments in the next 4 years that will lead up to this moment again. Very strong team, European champions, like you said. One of the best coaches in the world who actually a lot of people have pegged for the U.S. women's national team to go after as their coach. And despite her saying that, she wants to stay with the team, she has no plans to go anywhere. Her contract is through 2025. So they have a really strong team and a strong program. that could get them back here again.
So before we have another World Cup, of course, we have the Olympics next year. Is there sort of a feeling right now that these might be the two top teams competing for gold, or are there some other teams that have just as good of a shot?
I think that we saw in this World Cup that any team really has a shot at this point. A lot of the teams that are making it to this tournament have improved vastly. Their club teams have improved vastly in the last 4 years. Their coaching, their resources. So certainly the U.S. wants to make some changes to make sure that they are one of those top teams. But yeah, all of the teams that did well, Japan, Spain, Australia, like there's still some teams that need to qualify. Only 4 teams have qualified so far. So I think it's safe to say there'll be another interesting tournament.
All right. I love a tournament where you don't know who's going to win, and there's a lot of people who could do it. All right. Alicia Delgado, thanks so much for joining us throughout the World Cup. We appreciate it. It's going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now.
The news continues right now.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.